Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 76 of the Powerbombshells. I am Sam. That is Mel. We are not your typical broads talking about your typical wrestling. And if you listened to the boom last week, you know that we debuted our tag team persona, the Timekeepers. And so yeah, I actually put it in our Twitter bio. It's still Twitter. I'm not calling it a letter. It's still Twitter, even though my app updated this morning and it's ugly. But I was like, we don't have room on the Power Bombshells Instagram bio, but I decided to put a little reference to our tag team mantra in our
it doesn't
Twitter
fit
bio.
on the tag team bio?
Not on Instagram.
I'll have Instagram bio because it fits on the
on Twitter, I had to take out the word exclusively for it to fit. And then if I can make it fit on Instagram if I delete some stuff out of there, but I don't know. We'll see. I'll have to play with it again.
You'll have to look at the Threads thing once you decide it. Do you want to look at the Threads?
Oh yeah, because I have to download a separate app for that, right?
But we are on Threads now, everybody. Yes. So
I guess we should update our banner to say.
I will put it.
But leave it as Twitter because I'm not calling it. It's still Twitter. I don't care what he calls it.
Oh no, that's a
so Threads. You can leave that part to say Twitter. We'll just add Threads in there.
Threads is separate. I'm not putting that stupid letter on there. It's ridiculous. The whole thing. Anyway, there's going to be like 10 tons of copyright battle over it because you could argue that Microsoft 10 and there was an old. I saw something, and again, I haven't waded through this because
I know Meta owns
all those billionaires that are like fragile billionaires who bought something to break it,
right? Right, and then he put up this sign that's very bright on top of the building that is gonna make somebody have a seizure. And it's so bright that it shines on an apartment complex from across the street. And from what a Twitter follower said, or not a follower, but somebody on Twitter said that it's a rent-controlled building that elderly people live in. Lovely. And so that bright X is shining right on their building, and it has a strobing effect. So somebody's going to end up having a seizure.
Not good for people with or without alpha. Photosensitivity is like all kinds of problems.
Yeah, exactly.
It's bad.
Yeah. Somebody said he has never thought about another person in his life, which seems accurate.
He has enough money that he doesn't have to.
Right.
So
this is true.
I mean, this is where late stage capitalist bullshit gets us.
Yeah, right.
But let's not talk about that.
That has been Capitalist Corner on Powerbombshells.
That's right. There we see.
Let's talk about your awesome hat.
I want to talk about my hat only because I found it this week. I had to go to the hardware store for various outdoor, thingies. Because it's been like the air is finally good enough to like go out and do things.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a hat rack, and now I'm on the lookout for hats all the time. And this one, I was like, oh, it's kind of got that like Jake Hager bucket hat thing kind of going on. It's versatile, it's made of. But the most important aspect of this hat, Sam, is it is made of 100% fabric.
Oh, nice.
Fabric.
Fabric.
Can you tell? Here, I don't know if you can read that.
I can't. It's not coming across, but I'll
all right. But anyway, everybody, be reassured that this hat is 100% fabric.
You can never be too sure these days, so I'm glad that they specified.
As opposed to the ones that are not. It was cracking me up. I'm like, what? Like, is that Bob's like? Is that like a fabric? They grow fabric trees.
Apparently, just for these hats. Grace says, you guys are on different sides this week. We are. Sometimes that happens.
I bet
it's because you clicked it. You clicked on
first
before I did.
Is it messing everyone up? Oh my god, the world is gonna. We can fix it if it's really bothersome.
I think that is the only way to fix it. Is there a way to, I mean, I don't care. We can leave it as is.
The way I would guess is that here. Ooh. There you go. It's fixed. We're on the right side now. The correct side.
Sorry to throw you off there. For our audio listeners, we came up on the screen because Mel clicked in before I did, and so it put her on the screen on the left and put me on the right, and it's generally the opposite way. So
And that's funny because,
but when you watch something for so long, then sometimes you start to notice, wait, something's not right here.
I was just gonna say, like, aesthetically, I can completely understand.
Yeah.
Especially since we can't unsee our logo being kind of off kilter on the
Right.
because you like showed me, and now
Yeah,
I
sorry
can
about
never
that.
unsee it. So
Yep. Grace said all is right in the world now. Well, I'm glad.
oh, good, sweet,
I'm glad we could
fantastic.
deliver that to you.
That was a close one.
It was.
Man, oh man. So yeah, so I have a fabric hat. I'm very
glad you have a
happy.
fabric. Glad it's all fabric. I'm glad you have that.
It is wonderful, and I can use it outside. It's actually pretty good. It's got little vents in it and some like wire and stuff in it.
Oh, nice.
So and the girl was so cute because I've got a hardware store literally around the corner from me, so I just use it, and it's local.
Well, see, you're supporting a local business, and you're
exactly
contributing to your hat collection, so it's a win-win for everybody.
It was so cute because she's like, well, they're all between this and this much, and you have to, and I knew which one I wanted. So she just like, I just have to scan it for you. She's like, do you want me to cut the stuff off? And I was like, heck yeah. And I wore it home. I was just like, I'm breaking this hat.
There you go. My 100% fabric hat.
100% fabric. I was like, gosh. And then I wondered if it was like, well, duh, of course you're fabric. If you were in fabric, you wouldn't exist. And then, you get into the like quantum like discourse in your own brain, and then you're like, shut up, brain. And you move on with your life.
Nikki says that you look like you're going on a safari.
I'm channeling my inner Kevin Ely.
There you go. Don't get
without
Ebola.
the Ebola flares up.
Don't get the Ebola.
It's so.
But if you're channeling that, then that must mean that he is going to be an honorary broad and come be on the show.
Isn't he an honorary broad already?
Yes, he is.
He did for he did Forbidden Door.
Yes, he did.
I've just never been on something with Kevin Ely, so I don't know if that makes him a full-fledged broad or. I don't know how the rules work. We haven't really gotten into.
We should probably look into those rules.
Yeah.
And make them up as we go.
And
since we were talking about
them up and then completely change them at the last minute, and
yes,
just because people love that.
Yeah, they do.
And long-term storytelling.
Right, exactly. Because we can finish the story however we want to. And speaking of honorary broads, make sure that you have subscribed to the YouTube channel. Obviously, that supports us because we're the only one that live streams every week. There are obviously full shows that are on here, so definitely make sure you check those out. There's clips from honorary broads, people who have not been on the show before. However, with big shows coming up in a few weeks, with AEW, and even SummerSlam. I guess I would assume they're doing stuff for SummerSlam. So make sure you're subscribed because there's definitely going to be a lot of content, that we'll be doing our pre shows because that's our thing now and we like it. So we'll give you updates in probably a week or two about what we'll be doing for that. But make sure you're subscribed already so that you don't miss anything. There's going to be a lot of good content coming your way.
Probably put that banner up there because that would help people to
and if you're listening on
see these things
and the audio people, we will put it up. It will just be you'll hear it probably after the pay-per-view. So if you would like to come join us live that day, you can do so at youtube.com/FightGameMedia, and we will be live for both shows, for both All Out.
We're gonna do something for both shows. We're gonna do
go ahead and
we might even have some bonus content, but don't. We'll just tease that.
Well, you never know, so you might as well just subscribe so you don't miss anything. Make sure you're following us on Twitter, on Instagram, on Threads, because I guess Threads will probably start utilizing
we do have a Fight Game Media. No, wait. I don't know if we have a Fight Game Media threads at this moment, but we have a Powerbombshells threads because I figured it out. Thanks to James. Thanks to
Mel, and thanks to honorary bombshell James.
Yeah, he did. That going on there on Tuesday was fun and informational. So
yes,
it worked out great. And we got a tag team name.
Yeah. We got it all.
We are the only ones on this network with a tag team name.
This is true.
We are the only tag team on Fight Game Media. Thank you very much. So,
and if you subscribe to Patreon, you can get last week's episode where you can hear us talking about weird wiener injuries from Blood and Guts, Orange Cassidy versus Bret Hart. You can hear about why we are the timekeepers if you missed last Sunday's show, because this conversation, well, not that conversation in particular, but there was a conversation that went across 3 shows last week. So if you subscribe to the Patreon, you'll get the Boom where you can hear that, and the Dynamite show where you can also hear the discussion that happened last week. So,
which I am not caught up on, but it's okay if you spoil me on it because I'm still catching up.
Yeah,
on, I had to. I'm sorry, Paul and Jeff, but I had to hear Mike and JD talk about UFOs, and so they beat you.
I've got to listen to that episode. I have not heard that one yet. I gotta get on that one.
The UFO thing was too much. I had to jump this. So I will be listening to it. I had to go with Mike and JD first because I knew. If you're in the conspiracy channel in our Discord, you knew full well Mike was going to go off.
when that was happening on Twitter, when the where they were talking about the hearing or whatever, I was like, I'm gonna have to join Discord and go get in the conspiracy theory corner so I can see their takes on what's happening right now. I was like, this is finally what's gonna make me join.
It's like you can mute everything but Powerbombshells and conspiracy theory. You're good.
At this
point,
have
so much fun. You'll get in on. You guys will totally get into. Dr. Preet turned us all on to AJ and the Y-Files, and you'll definitely love that stuff.
Yeah, I've got it. I'm subscribed to it. I just need to start
I know it's hard because there's no time for anything.
Well, especially, and it's also G1 season. I'm still getting caught up on that. Thankfully, Mel hooked me up with her list of matches, that must-see matches, and so we finished night 3, which was only one match left. It was Shooter versus Sonata. And then we got through night 4 and night 5 from the matches that you suggested. And so we're gonna try to get to some of night 6 tonight, but also it's the season finale of Righteous Gemstones tonight, and so we're getting to that first. But I think we're gonna at least, because I think night 6 was the one that you told us to try to watch the whole thing, so we're at least gonna try
that if that's the 7/27 show, that's
I believe it
with
is
Okada and Ospreay as the main event.
Oh, I know it. No, that I don't. I think that might be the next night.
But it's the one right before that one.
I do know the outcome of that match because he came up in my timeline, and then also another wrestler quote tweeted it, and so
it got spoiled for me too. But I was like in the midst of watching the show. I'm almost done with the show. It's just that I end up sometimes having to do things in chunks for either like whether it's energy or just straight timing or whatever. It's just like, and I want to watch the whole match through with these because it's getting to be that these last 2 shows especially were like, it's hard to say skip most, like you can definitely skip this and you can definitely skip this. But then on the 7/27, which was the one, not the one that took place today. It's the last one that took place before today, which I believe was Friday.
We'll be way back on 7/23 as the episode, so we'll be on night 6. So we're halfway. I know night 10 I think was this morning, so we're halfway.
Yeah, I had to get caught up, and I'm like,
so I have to. But I will say that once Tsuji finally beats Sonata, it's gonna be incredible because he has gotten so close to beating him twice now and had really incredible matches. And I was like, whenever Tsuji gets that win, I was like, it's going to be huge, or at least for me.
They've done an incredible job. There's a lot of people like, oh, belt Tsuji and do all this. I'm like, no. He's got to earn it. They don't do that in New Japan. You come in and you earn it. You build yourself up. And it's like, and he does have a ton of charisma. And like, oh my gosh.
I really like him.
Dude, the future is so bright.
It's ridiculous.
Their young guys are shining in this tournament like bright, wonderful stars.
And New Japan's gonna be in good shape for a while, I think.
It's getting to that point where your commitment, like it's like now you're starting to really, you're like, oh yeah, this is where I know my commitment paid off.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Because it's getting like, and
I
even like there was one day where I told you that I would give you a little bit of my recap of some of my favorite Kevin Kelly moments, just because he's hilarious.
I do love that last night, I got him singing the Just Five Guys song. Because I knew I think I saw Brad talking about it on one of the nights, and I was like, oh, come on. I was like, sing it. And then I hear like very faintly singing that he sang it, and then I was like singing it until I went to bed, and I was like, love this. This is so great.
It was awesome. I was like, he's like, should I do it? Should I do it?
Yes, always.
And I was like,
we
oh, he's doing it. That's so
over here. And it's become a thing now. Like, you have to, like, Sonata needs his song.
Well, and like, so Chris Charlton was like freestyling and like struggling one night, and which, I mean, is understandable,
Sure. Yeah.
But I also was like, I love sitting around thinking about the fact that Chris Charlton is like sitting in his like apartment or his house somewhere, like thinking up lyrics to Just Five Guys that he can freestyle.
Well, that's like, because that's what Ian does.
Like one of the times that Sonata was done, ended up, because it's just the way it worked, is that part of his promo was a shampoo commercial. Basically.
Oh, right. I saw the video. I saw the ad, the shampoo ad I saw. And Doki has beautiful hair.
So they started. So Kevin and Chris started in on it's called Summit Shampoo, and they just started in on it. And he was singing. He used his Summit shampoo, and I mean, he was just like
perfect. Oh God, I can't wait to get to it.
So if you hear a Summit shampoo reference, it's directly related to the fact that Chris Charlton, it was so funny the moment where you could tell that they were all realizing that Sonata's cutting a promo, but what he's really doing is cutting a commercial. And Chris Charlton has to like try and translate all of this to all of it. He's like, okay, I don't want to leave you out, but that was basically it. Use Summit shampoo.
That's wonderful.
Kevin Kelly, you could tell that like Chris Charlton was struggling to keep it together, because Kevin Kelly had to have been just laughing. He had to have been. It was amazing.
Oh, that's great.
So they were almost doing a duet.
Good on Summit Shampoo for doing it. Good for Summit Shampoo for doing the ad campaign during the G1 so that Sonata can promote it in his speech.
Hey, listen, hey.
They're smart. Good for them.
Westerners who visit Japan for New Japan will now be looking for Summit Shampoo.
Exactly. Yeah, when I told Nikki they were doing that he had the commercial and that I had seen it on Twitter, she asked if it was like the lipstick that Joey Tribbiani wore in Friends, because he shot, when he was an actor, he shot a Japanese commercial and he was wearing blue lipstick. I think it was called Ichiban.
I forgot.
And so that's what Nikki asked me. She was like, was he wearing blue lipstick? I was like, unfortunately, he was not. However, if he did wear blue lipstick, it would go with his jade gear.
It would.
It would great with his jade gear.
Well, and now it's going to be in his song, because we all know what shampoo he uses.
Yeah, exactly.
It's fantastic.
I do want to say that I appreciate you making me not have to sit through Eddie Kingston versus Evil. I had heard that Evil beat Eddie Kingston, and I was fast forwarding to another match, and I saw him laying over top of Eddie when he pinned him, and I was like, thank God Mel didn't make me watch this match.
I honestly,
that's like, this is so stupid.
With very little exception, there has not been an Evil match that was like unmissable.
Yeah, that's
he's just surprising. I mean,
he's just there.
He's not. He doesn't work for me. It's just not. And it was like, that's over. That ship sail. That was tried. It's done. I mean, he's in here. It's fine. But even like the Bullet Club story, to me, is 10,000 billion times more interesting.
Yeah,
than anything.
And that's what I keep hearing people. That's what people are talking about? They are talking about Bullet Club, and they're talking about Bullet Club in New Japan and Bullet Club Gold, and they're talking about Chris Bay and Ace Austin. Like, I think Bullet Club has been probably as relevant as they've been in a really long time, it
Yeah.
seems like, and I'm only seeing bits and so I'm coming like, I've seen what's kind of going on even though I'm behind, and so now I'm gonna start getting into the part where, like, I'm seeing what everybody else is seeing, which I'm looking forward to, because I've always been a Bullet Club fan since I started watching New Japan, so I'm glad to see they are having this kinda new iteration. I've seen some people fuss about it, but I'm like, if you know anything about the original
Oh,
Bullet
no,
Club,
this
which
is
I
great.
missed,
See, for
it's
me, I'm just the opposite. I'm like, this is 100% like Bullet Club isn't fine. Who's the leader of Bullet Club?
right,
We're
yeah.
all gonna duke it out and figure out
Mhm.
who. The people involved are really charismatic.
Right.
I mean, David Finlay and all of the thing that's emerging there, ELP being what ELP. I mean, they're all fun. They're not.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like my first G1 where Bullet Club was kind of doing a similar thing where they were reorienting because they had just lost a bunch of big
Right.
names in their deals. So they were like, what are we now?
Yeah.
And I love it. I think it's
Yeah.
great. And there's new kids because there's like all the Shibata kids that are in there now
That hate Shibata.
and yeah,
Shibata's like, I'm just gonna stay over here with my Google translator and ROH where they respect me and support me. Because they had we'll get to some of the ROH stuff, but like he responded to somebody issued him a challenge and he responded. There's a little promo that they showed a little clip and he has his little translate thing where his little app and he accepts the match via the translation. It's fantastic.
that must be an interesting. I think I remember seeing that it was out there, but I don't think I watched it.
Yeah, because he did, like I was saying before, he did the Death Before Dishonor scrum, and that's how he did it. And he was answering with the app, and then I guess because it went over so well, they just were like, just use it in your promos. And so that was the first time that he used it. I think they showed it on it was on their Twitter on Friday because the match was the challenge was issued Thursday night during the show, and so Friday they showed the clip of him accepting via a translation app.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so it's like good for Shibata, especially because it's so interesting. Like, because he's done with the school. He's not
With
doing
the
anything
dojo
with the
system,
dojo
he's
anymore,
out.
which is really interesting. So,
The whole, I guess everyone's reorienting. Like,
yeah, it seems like it. And
changing there,
he didn't
evolving.
somebody did ask him if he was in ROH full time, and that part of the question was not answered. I don't know if it was on purpose or just because obviously he was using the app to answer, and so it made because these poor Sonata, he was doing such a great job, but people were asking him like 2 and 3 part questions, and I was like, he's clearly using an app. Like, give him time. Like, ask him one question, let him answer it, and then follow up. It's not like you're talking when you talk to Tony Khan and you're trying to get as many questions in as you can. Like, give Sonata time. And so like I said, I don't know if they purposely didn't answer the question or if because Sonata was trying to keep up, like he just missed that question. But I mean, it seems like I don't know if he's full time, but it seems like he's more active than he's been. So that must mean that he feels comfortable enough to be in the ring on a semi-regular basis, which is great to see because who would have ever thought that was ever going to happen again.
Well, I mean, I guess the deal is like they won't let him wrestle, and ROH will let him wrestle and can't get him cleared, and he wants to wrestle. So
yeah, and he's still. I mean,
in his mind, he's probably making up for lost time in a way. I mean, the guy is they call him the wrestler, like he's
right. Yeah, and I mean, he's doing the pure South stuff, so he's not doing anything like really crazy or anything like that. He's still like just doing amazing things, but in a safe way. So he's obviously they're not doing anything with this. He's not doing like diamond headbutts or anything like that.
Yeah, right.
So they're being careful about it. So it's really cool to see that he's that especially because he's wrestling he's getting into where he's wrestling some of the younger guys and like he so I mean I guess since we're going to talk about ROH anyway, I'll just go ahead and say it. So Thursday night they opened with a Pure Rules match. It was Eli Isom versus Josh Woods. And so they used, obviously, with the pure matches, they have 3 judges. And Shibata was actually a judge for this match. And I believe that's the first time they've used him as a judge for pure matches since he's been in ROH, I think. I'm pretty sure that was the first one. But anyway, so Josh Woods obviously wins because he's a former pure champion in ROH. And so Smart Mark Sterling is his manager, and he issued a challenge to Shibata on Josh Woods' behalf. I don't know if Josh Woods knew he was going to do that. Just was like, oh, you're just going to make this challenge for me. All right. And so Shibata gets in the ring. They're standing face to face. And Mark is like, we don't do anything without a contract. And like, left the ring. And so then they were like, well, Tony says if they can get it figured out, the match will be sanctioned. And so then the next day, Shibata, like, it's a very quick promo and it's with the translator app, and he just accepts the match. So I believe it'll be on this Thursday's episode. And then while we're talking about ROH, and speaking of champions, Samoa Joe became the second longest reigning ROH television champion in history. As of Thursday, he was 97 days shy of taking over first place, not first place, but longest reigning, I should say. And the person who currently holds that record is Jay Lethal, and Jay Lethal is Samoa Joe's former protege. And so also he is already the longest reigning ROH world champion by like combined, I think between like combined reigns. So if he surpasses Jay Lethal, then he will be the longest reigning ROH world champion and television champion. So I thought that was a pretty cool thing for Joe to still be doing. And they're doing, but the only thing is they seem to be having some issues finding him an opponent, because before Death Before Dishonor, they did like a one-night tournament to find him. No, it wasn't a one night. They did a one-night tournament, and then the next week was the finals. That's what it was. And so it was a one-night tournament to find him an opponent for Death Before Dishonor. The night before Death Before Dishonor, Dalton Castle defeated Shane Taylor, and Dalton Castle wrestled him at Death Before Dishonor. So then last week, Joe may or may not be using Stokely Hathaway to his advantage, may or may not be bullying him and trying to get some things done. So they're doing another tournament. They started night 1 last Thursday, and then they haven't announced who will be like the order of the tournament for this one. I don't know even when the match is going to happen, because there's no more, like I mentioned before, there's no more pay-per-views until December. So I guess it'll just be a random Thursday night unless they decide to put it on Collision, which, Samoa Joe he was on Collision last night. He wrestled Gravity.
I was going to say, that seems like it would make sense because they were on there last night.
Yeah, they were on, he wrestled Gravity last night, which I thought was great. And, good for Gravity getting all these matches. Like, I really enjoyed his match with Pac. I know some people were, they didn't like it and they don't like the comedy stuff. But what I really liked about it was Pac playing into it. Like, Pac is obviously a very serious wrestler, but he knows like when, like, he was like yelling in his face, like, how dare you forget me, or don't forget me again, like all this great stuff. Like, I really enjoyed it for what it was. I thought it was fun. It's not hurting anything. It doesn't make Pac look like, it doesn't make him less of a threat. He got the win anyway.
He's Pac, everyone. Yeah. Relax.
Right. It's okay. It's okay to let them have fun sometimes.
He's like he's practically their Ishii in some ways.
Yeah, right. That's a good comparison.
He is like, he will always do whatever you need him to do, and he will do it awesome, and he'll do it like one of his Orange Cassidy match the first time. Yeah. He was like one of my favorite matches ever. Mm-hmm. And he was like, all right, fine, let's do this. Yeah. Like, I mean, that was a lot of fun, and good experience for Gravity. But
and then you put Gravity,
it made it so that the entire wrestling community, including Pac in the ring, could make that joke.
Yeah, right. And if you didn't like it, it's fine. Just be a stick in the mud and let the rest of us enjoy it.
Grump.
But so Gravity out here
with some, you get off your lawn or whatever, and
go yell at clouds. But so anyway, so he got the spot on with Gravity. So I'm wondering if they'll do, because once again, Athena is the only ROH champion not on AEW television, as we saw this week. So, and Aussie Open is defending their ROH tag team champions next Wednesday on the 200th episode of Dynamite.
Oh, it's because it's the 200th episode.
It is, but it's still the ROH titles, which is interesting that they're defending it. But, I mean, good for them. It's going to be a great match. Like, I'm really looking forward to it. But yeah, so it's just interesting. Once again, Athena is not on AEW television, but all the other ROH champions are. Except Shibata, I guess, because Shibata wasn't on there, but I'm sure that's coming. They've put Shibata on TV a couple of times, which why wouldn't you? If you have access to Shibata, you should put him on TV as much as you can. But yeah, it's interesting how they're doing that. But yeah, so it's a little interesting because Rampage had back-to-back tournaments. They did the Royal Rampage the week before. Then Friday night they had the tag team battle royal to determine the number one contenders for the tag team titles at some, and that's Brian Cage and Big Bill won that match, and so they are facing FTR. I think it's next Saturday on Collision in Greenville, South Carolina. I believe that's that's when they're doing the match. So it's interesting that they're kind of, I know it's because they've got to build towards the two big pay-per-views, which they are doing a very crappy job of so far.
Well,
but they're relying on.
He usually does like a bad job, but now it's just because it's too much.
Right. Well, it's two consecutive pay-per-views, or however they're gonna call it, because
it's hard, but it's hard to know. Is like All In part of the like main story, or is it more like Forbidden Door where we have some things can go on, but
I feel like it's gonna be that because it's their first time to the UK, so people are gonna want to see certain matches and certain people because they've never seen them before. So I guess it kind of fits because Dynamite is the 200th episode, and they do kind of seem to be throwing in some of the originals. Like they have the match that's Jon Moxley versus Trent Beretta versus Penta, I think is what that match is. I believe that's the match.
You're probably right.
And then they're doing, so they, as of last night, they're not, because Sheeta, not as of last night, as of Friday night on Rampage, Sheeta and Nyla were the main event. Sheeta won, and so it wasn't technically it wasn't like the winner gets a shot at the title. That's Sheeta's story, is she wants her title back, and so she won, and so they're doing Sheeta versus Tony on Wednesday. So they're kind of doing like originals with like the current type of thing. And so one of the things that I thought was interesting, they seem to be focusing on some of the because they are focusing on the originals, especially in the tag team division. And so I am wondering if this is where Proud and Powerful returns. Because Thursday, I believe it was, no, Tuesday, someone tweeted that they are both listed on the AEW roster as Proud and Powerful. They had not previously been listed like that for a while. I went and checked it out for myself, and that's how they are listed. And Santana has been hinting that he's coming back. He's been kind of teasing it.
Are they okay with each other then?
That is my assumption, is that maybe they work things out. Right. Maybe they cleared, maybe they work things out or whatever.
I mean, I don't know. That's bad.
So that's my guess, is because they're both listed as Proud and Powerful. They're doing a lot of focus on the originals. They keep doing a lot of stuff with Best Friends, who obviously is one of the original tag teams. So are the Lucha Brothers.
I mean, I'd love to see them back. I love it.
So I'm wondering if they come back on Wednesday, and maybe they want to take them. Maybe they want to take them to London. Maybe that's part of the reason they're doing it now. Maybe this is because they're trying to give the UK fans some of the AEW originals. And I didn't think of it before, like until you said it, but I do think kind of the Forbidden Door type of thing. Like I think this is going to be more dream match than storyline type of thing.
Yeah, because All Out, you would imagine, would be the storyline.
Right. That because almost like they're putting it on pause for a week so that they can go do these dream matches.
Do a super show. And
right, exactly. And so there is the rumor that's going around that Will Ospreay is going to wrestle Chris Jericho, which would make sense if that's what they're doing with some of the original and some of the, and obviously, Will Ospreay is not AEW, but he is I mean, it's obviously it's going to be in his hometown. He's somebody that they're looking at. There's a very good chance that when his New Japan contract comes up, he does come to AEW. So it kind of makes sense. And they've never seen, I know, like, because I kind of rolled my eyes at the at Chris Jericho too, but a lot of these UK, somebody pointed out, a lot of these UK fans have not seen Chris Jericho outside of WWE.
They have to, like, it was JD and
when I actually
Mike
saw it prior to what they were saying,
made me. They were the ones that talked me into this actually being a better idea than I thought it was when I first heard it. Was because
I want
they
to hear
made
their
the
whole
point
argument, but
letting them, and I was like, oh, that's a great point. Let them sing Judas.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
It's like, okay.
I think some of we're used to it. We've seen it, but the UK they haven't gotten these experiences yet. And so that's something that they want. Like if Cody was there, they're obviously going to want the Cody entrance. Like you're going to want the full thing. And so, and if you're going back to, like you said, a Forbidden Door style show, then you're going to give them these things that they haven't been able to experience yet. And so it would be Judas.
Well, Mox, you would want Mox walking through
Right.
the whole freaking like historic like monument stadium, and so you get him entering from wherever the heck he wants to, because he does that everywhere. You need that on the show. You need I mean, the singing, definitely the singing is fun. I mean, listen, I was just as much excited my first time as anybody. Like, I loved it. It's fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun experience. And and so like, and I see that Kenny Omega, maybe they figure out how to get his North Carolina entrance back in there just because it's fun. I don't know how they'll do it, but maybe, I mean, and they haven't been doing it in a while, but
his North Carolina.
I do too. It's a lot of fun. So like,
does
like maybe I could see them doing like Kenny Omega's via the airport in North Carolina, or something like that they could add in.
You made a connection to
something like
get to London's airport from North Carolina
to get to Heathrow or something like that. Like I could see just so people get the whole experience. Like, and that's fine. Like I don't think it's a big deal to do some of this original stuff or to do some of the things that we have seen a bunch of times. I mean, maybe they have Hangman Page come out on a horse just because,
but the more you like think about it and the more you talk about it, the more it makes all the sense in the world, because it's the first time, and they do a few of those things in Canada, but I think a lot of the Canadians could make it down to Chicago and Detroit and Seattle and whatever, Boston. I think most of those Canadians but where it's an easier accessible, we're talking about an ocean.
Right. I was gonna say, of course there have been some fans who have flown in
over there.
Yeah. And I was like, of course there's fans who have flown in for stuff, and I'm sure they come in like for, to Vegas or Chicago, but that's a very small, like it's not at this point, none of their shows are a WrestleMania type thing where people fly in from all over the country. Like it'll eventually get there, and I'm sure, and I know there's some people who have, but especially it's the first show in the UK. Like they got derailed because of COVID and all of that stuff. So it's a big deal for them to get. And so I don't have an issue with them kind of focusing on that and kind of leaving storyline stuff to the side, or maybe not focusing as much on it because they'll be doing it in a week later anyway. So I think that'll be fine. So and I do want to, if we're banging the drum on things with the women, the one thing that I will bang the drum on, even if it is for 0 hour, because I'm sure they'll get a pre-show, is to please grant Emi Sakura's wish of playing at Wembley or performing at Wembley, because that's where Freddie Mercury performed, and she has been tweeting about it for months since the thing was announced. And Emi is one of the best women you have on your roster.
Emi's great.
You don't use Emi enough. I don't care if you put her in a 0 hour match with 6 other women. I don't care. Just give her that dream. Really, you can make that dream happen for her. And so that is I was like, I will very gladly bang that drum for her.
I didn't know she felt that way. I want all my vibes in the universe towards her doing that are there. I don't even if it's on 0
since
hour.
That show has been announced, she's been tweeting that she wants to wrestle at Wembley because Freddie Mercury played there, and she wants to wrestle in the same building that he performed in. And that is,
she's awesome.
She's amazing. And only one person,
it's not like they're like some low tier. I know it's like, it's not some like indie wrestler we're talking about. This is like a professional wrestling. Like
She's
great.
on your roster. She's been
wonder, and she's great in the ring. She can wrestle anyone. Pick somebody.
Yeah, she's been incredible. She's been when the TV matches that she's had, when people finally got to see her and they're like, where has she been? And we're like, on YouTube.
Yeah, right.
She's the queen.
Friday night,
She's the queen of dark.
And Hikaru Shida was like one of the best matches of the week.
Yes, and that
includes G1 matches.
Yeah, she's amazing, and so that is the next drum.
Yeah,
I mean, we'll beat the drum for other things, but that is my one drum that I will beat the loudest, is because I want Emmy to have that moment. Only Tony can give her that moment. Just let her have it. It's not going to hurt anything. She's an incredible wrestler. Put her on. I don't care if I don't even think she would care if it was 0 hour. Just let her have that moment. She has earned it for all the things she's done in her career, even outside of AEW, but even with what she's done in AEW, they've called on her when they've needed her, and she's been incredible. And so I think they should give her that moment, and I hope that Tony does.
I hope so too. I know that they're like precious few spots for that situation, but
exactly.
I mean, if you're like expecting any less than a 5-hour pay-per-view, you're like on crack.
Especially because now that we know it's starting at 1 p.m. It's starting at 1 p.m. or it's supposed the guest is starting at 1 p.m. Eastern time. I don't know if that's 0 hour at 1 p.m. or if that's
like card. 5. What is that? 6 p.m.
It's 6 p.m. Time. So that might be 0 hour for at 1 p.m.
It's probably So that would be, I think, 6 p.m. local and.
Right. And I just want Emmy to go out there. She hasn't done her queen gear in a really long time.
That would jibe with like how Forbidden Door went down.
So they could let her come out there in her yellow outfit that she wears when she used to do her queen gear. She not the queen as in that gear that she wears now with the crown, but she was doing she had the yellow jacket like Freddie Mercury that she used to wear, and she would wrestle in that and have the all white outfit. So I was like, just give her that moment. Let her get out there for 7 or 8 minutes and just live her best life. And we'll get an amazing match out of it because she's incredible. So if
I'm rooting for that, I want that. I'm in.
That's what I want more than anything. Like, what do you want from this all-in card? I want Emi Sakura to have a match on 0 hour. Have her moment. I want her to have that. But so that'll be. So I know some people were not happy that they weren't doing Omega Osprey 3 here.
I don't think it makes sense here.
I don't think it does either. It's too soon, especially because it's 2 weeks after
that match
ends. I think
the match they just had, there's no way that they should be just like rushing out and having another match after the match. That was too good. I mean,
that's a Wrestle Kingdom level match.
Like they basically outdid themselves, but it was at least even.
Yeah. And if you're going to do a dream match on this card for Kenny Omega, then his opponent should be Okada.
Just like John said, all those.
It should be Omega Okada 5 if you're going for dream matches for these fans and giving them a dream card, then that's the match that you do. I mean, that's what I would do. But it'll be, and so it'll be interesting. I hope they start. And so there's a question, and did you watch the Collision last night?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So CM Punk was talking about Wembley. Which he apparently, besides Nyla Rose, who said it in a pre-tape promo, I believe that CM Punk is the only one who has actually said the words Wembley. So far. So he talks about Wembley, then he talks about how he's the real champion, and he's obviously hinting at a match with MJF. And so I just assumed this match would happen at All Out in Chicago because that makes the most sense. But he was talking about it while talking about Wembley. So do you think they're going to do it at Wembley instead? Or do you think it was just the way it was worded that he wasn't really saying one way or another?
I wouldn't have thought it until he mentioned it last night.
Okay.
See, all of a sudden I went, because there was a part of me that went, oh, I actually, when he said it, because I know a lot of people have messed around with that idea has been circling around that rumor has been kind of circling around and then circling back and then uncircling and then recircling.
Yeah, exactly.
that actually has been out there for a long time.
Yeah, it has.
And I mean, and I trust the people that I listen to and that I talk to on the daily and stuff. So it's like, okay, that was out there.
Yeah.
And I mean, who knows, because so much changes and it's wrestling and it's the business and
yeah.
But,
well, yeah, because we originally heard
then last night
we originally heard, you and I originally heard from someone else that Jericho was facing someone else at all, supposedly at All In.
At All In.
The
and
idea
there was a time where
know things change, and and so that's why. So then that's why I thought last night, I was like, well, maybe it isn't. Like, I just assumed this was an All Out match. It makes the most sense to do it in Chicago because of everything that happened last year at All Out. And then he was talking about Wembley and said it, and I was like, wait a minute.
Until he said it, and because of the what he said, what he was doing, it was where he was bringing the belt out and doing the thing and saying, no one ever pinned me for this belt. No
right, and then he said it also, this match will depend on the outcome of tonight's match. So clearly he meant MJF. And somebody pointed out, I didn't think about it until, so in the main event, obviously MJF is the one who he got pinned. He's very upset. He keeps telling Adam Cole, I'm the reason we lost. And somebody was saying they think it's because he heard what CM Punk said and it got in his head and distracted him from the match last night. And so CM Punk is already, so they're starting the mind games a little bit with that. And so clearly we're getting the match. I just am trying to figure out where, because I was like, now it sounds like it's Wembley, which would not be a bad place to have it. But considering everything that went on last year, I still think All Out would be the better location, but maybe they don't want to do that in Chicago. Maybe they do.
Maybe they do an angle at Wembley.
Okay.
And do the match at All Out. Because then you can have because I'm not going to lie, there have been rumors that CM Punk was not going to be on that show at all. That there was no plan to have him in Wembley, that no one was going to bring. But then there was a lot of people saying, how can you not? Because again, he's another featured player that.
Right.
And MJF too. I wouldn't. Maybe they do an angle and not a match.
Maybe so. Maybe they do a
it seems like a silly reason to fly them across the ocean, but then again, it doesn't when you think about the nature of the show.
Right. And I was going to say, and the fans you're giving, the fans are obviously, they're paying for, I would assume that a large chunk of fans that are going to All In are expecting to see CM Punk there. Just because, and a lot of them, he's another person that people have not seen since WWE. So
maybe they bring MJF and Adam Cole as that, and then there's an angle that crops up with
that's
CM
definitely
Punk.
Possible. And I was thinking about it yesterday because there's obviously been a lack of, we don't know what matches are happening at All In, but we actually know that there is probably something happening with Adam Cole with Progress Wrestling, because he started an angle
right
back when he went to, there was that, we talked about it a few months ago, but there was a convention in London where other wrestlers were at, and Adam and the current, I blanked on his name, but the current Progress champion had a stare down with he was holding the title and stuff. And so that it seemed to kind of think that, and that show is happening. They do have a show happening the night before All In. So
I was going to say they are having a show right there too.
Right. So. And that's the double show, because Defy is having a show, I think at noon their time, and then at 4 p.m. their time, Progress is having their show. So there's definitely,
and Rev Pro is also having a show.
Yes, they're having a show as well. So I would assume the AEW talent, whether they wrestle or not, will probably at least show up to get involved, create some buzz. Maybe if it's not sold out yet, but they're very close to selling out, maybe it just sells a few.
The Rev Pro, if the Rev Pro show isn't sold out, I'd be shocked. My friends were clamoring. They were like, we need to make sure we get tickets to that also.
Yeah, so
that was part of the deal for them.
It definitely seems like they're using the London indie scene to kind of help bolster what they're doing. I don't expect any indie talent to show up at All In. I think All In is going to be strictly AEW and maybe some New Japan talent. I don't see them bringing in that type of talent, but they're cultivating relationships. It's not like it's going to be the only time they go to London. So they'll come back, and I'm sure they'll come back and they'll bring Dynamite and Rampage and and ROH.
Ren Narita, Duo Tsuji, all those guys on part of their excursion, a ton of their excursion, all went through Rev Pro.
Yeah, and then Suzuki held he held, was it a ref? Suzuki had somebody's title for a while. One of the, I can't remember
believe
which
it.
promotion.
Yeah, I don't know
then
exactly, but I remember hearing that.
And then Greatest Okan had a Rev Pro title for a while. Then you have Aussie Open.
Well, Zach had it forever.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. So they have the tie. So even if they don't do anything with All In, like they're clearly going to go back to the UK, and I'm sure they're going to go. They'll probably do a whole week where, I mean, and that not even a whole week. I think they'll tour and probably go to. They'll probably do London, Manchester.
Yeah.
Dublin, like they'll do a little run, but I'm sure they're gonna bring over and they'll do Dynamite, they'll do all the TV shows, and they'll do ROH.
Do a card with OTT while they're there. That would be great.
That would be
OTT
cool.
has a location and everything.
Yeah, that would be very
They now
cool.
have a new spot at right in Dublin.
Yeah, so I'm really interested, and now they're kind of angling. Like I mentioned last week, you know, Britt kind of said like she wants to wrestle Saraya because she wants to beat her in front of her mother.
Mom.
So they kind of hinted that. And now like it'll be interesting to see what they do with the women, because we have learned that Jamie Hayter is nowhere near being cleared. Her injury apparently was worse than expected.
That's if Tony remembers to book a women's match on the All-In card.
Right. So I thought of I had seen some people talking about it, and the more I think about it, the more I am on board with it. A couple people suggested that Shida win on Wednesday and give Tony a rematch at All In, and Tony win it back at All In, which, I mean, I don't want Shida to be a transitional champion. However, it would be a storyline because, you know, what are those? So it would give Tony, like, obviously it gives Shida's goal has been obviously to become, especially because she was champion during the no crowds era of the pandemic. She wants to have a title shot or a title reign while there are fans.
To be have fans.
Yeah. So on the one hand, like, I don't want Shida to be a transitional champion. I think she deserves more than that. However, it is a storyline that they could do. They could have Tony challenge her, or even if maybe Shida retains. I mean, I know that's not the feel good story of having Tony win, you know, in London, but they could do the rematch there. And that's a pay-per-view level match to me, to do Shida versus Tony. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't be against Shida winning. I'm not sure how I feel about her. I don't really like the idea of her being a transitional champion, but they've got to do something because this division is dead. They've got to give it some kind of a spark. That would jumpstart it. Shida's a fan favorite. People love her. Understandably so. She's amazing.
And Tony seems like she's starting. I think being on Collision is really helping because she's like getting she's able to cut the promo she was cutting I think on last night on Collision. She was on Collision last night, right?
Tony was back,
or was she on Rampage?
I think that was Rampage.
The promo she was cutting on Rampage and the way she looks so much more confident and so much more like she feels like she's starting to really congeal, come back to the Tony Storm I saw when she came to Progress in 2018 or something.
Right. She definitely seems much more confident in herself.
She's I feel like she's getting her feet back under her and that she's ready to be an influence in the division, at least something, because she's got a lot of.
You're holding the
strength.
title. You gotta be more of a threat than you are just doing this nothing feud with the Outcast, and it just feels like.
Yeah, I mean, I think that may have run its course at this point.
It has I know it has elevated Ruby to I think this is some of Ruby's best work that she's done in AEW, and I really
but they're not giving her a match to pay any of it off right now,
right? And that's what I keep saying. That's what I keep coming back to. There's gonna be no Women's Blood and Guts this year. So what are we doing? What is the point? Why? I mean, Ruby I know they
get a huge match on All Out then.
You would think, but
at this point, I'm surprised she hasn't gotten a huge match on Dynamite at this point. It's frustrating actually.
Yeah. No,
they got her she is really people are back behind her again. I'm into Ruby right now, but I'm would you please give this woman a match?
Yeah, give her something. And it's almost like the Willow thing. Like you keep putting Willow in these title shot positions, and then she
Put
doesn't
her and
win.
Willow let them have a match.
Yeah. And Willow is back now. We saw her. She's back from vacation. We saw her last night. And I couldn't, but after I saw it, I was like, wait, are we building a story? Are we building something with multiple women? Is that what you're telling? Is that what you're teasing with me right now? I won't believe it until I see it. But
they had like more than like they had 2 women's matches on last night.
And they
did an angle.
They did an angle, and it appears that it's it's Willow and it's Chris Statlander and it's Mercedes Martinez and Kiera Hogan, which yay, we're getting some new women.
I am
on top of it. So I'm
starting to really like be mad because Collision is starting to feel like the best show out of all of the 3 of them.
Collision has definitely been, even with last week being like not like as on par with the rest of them, like
except that it had that huge like end match on it that went 58 minutes, which was but there's like always at least 2 really good matches, notwithstanding the tag matches. Like this, I love the Buddy Matthews and Andrade feud.
That match was incredible.
So much fun. Like he got his mask back last night. I was like marking out. I'm like jumping off the couch.
Well, and then they did a freaking picture-in-picture, and you see Doc Samson putting Buddy Murphy's shoulder back in the socket. Like it was incredible. It was like, that match had no business being a pay-per-view level match.
That 2 hours flies by too. It goes by so fast.
The pacing on Collision is so good.
I'm like, what do you... I mean, I'm glad. I'm happy. It's good. It should be like that. Maybe it belongs on... But it's like... Dynamite is your main show during the week. Like, you need to...
Right. I mean, but I guess maybe with Collision, they can experiment with some things where Dynamite's kind of more of a... They've got their
got their format set now.
But then obviously, I think they can test things out in Collision and see what's working, and then hopefully carry it over to Dynamite and Rampage.
I really hope so.
Give Rampage some... Rampage has had some really good matches the last few weeks, which I appreciate. It makes my job writing about it much easier.
I mean, the overwhelming attitude seems to be the like Rampage is going to get tacked onto the back end of one of the 2 other shows, but which one do you do it with? And
I mean, I don't know. Warner Brothers seems to be fine with the 3 shows. Maybe it stays put where it's at. Maybe it does. And,
well, then they should just use it as a developmental show. Make it your NXT.
If somebody made a comment, which I guess I can understand, is Rampage is your least watched show. So you have to be careful with who you put on it, I guess. Because then people aren't. But I'm like, on the other hand, they're not already getting booked on other places. So, like, a person I keep coming back to is Abaddon. Like, Abaddon has such a unique character that I think fans that like Orange Cassidy and Danhausen and like very like they like character based stuff like that. Like I think Abaddon would be perfect for that. Abaddon's a good wrestler. They did a lot on Dark and Elevation. They were kind of relegated to the YouTube show, but I think Abaddon is somebody like I could see Abaddon actually being an ROH. I think that would be, especially that's where Danhausen got over, really got over was there, and I think that Abaddon is somebody that they should be utilizing down there, because I mean you got like Dalton Castle down there who was very over the top and he's a national treasure and amazing, and so I just feel like they like Abaddon's somebody I keep going back to. So I mean maybe they do use Rampage for that, but then I mean some people Rampage is the least watched show, so you have to be careful of like the talent, but I mean you got to put the talent somewhere, like it's right. So it's like a catch-22. It's like, where do you put them? Like, do you give them the TV time? Because like I want to see, like, again, Sonny Kiss is somebody I want to see on TV. Sonny was on ROH programming this week. It was nice to see. So but like, and people, and actually I think it was Lance Archer posted a picture and was talking about calling the stable, it was like Freaks, Geeks, and Monsters, or I can't remember what he called it, but it was himself, Alex Zane, Abaddon, and I'm blanking on who the fourth person was,
Was it
but like it would be I was like, this would be an awesome faction. Like I would love this if they put it somewhere, put it on Rampage, put it on ROH. Like that's a really cool faction. And I'm glad to see Abbott was Sunny Kiss. I think it was Sunny Kiss. That's who it was. Yeah, Nikki said that stable would rule. It would. And so many people were in the replies were like, I love this idea. And they were tagging Tony. They were like, make this faction happen. Like, put it somewhere.
Let Lance Archer wrestle for Pete's sake. Like,
yeah. Lance Archer.
If he wants that faction around him and they can start a whole thing like House of Black or something, do that.
Right.
Like,
yeah, that would be a
little faction on Rampage that everyone wants to tune into.
Right. Exactly.
He could totally do it. The guy has he's tons of charisma. If they let him do his thing, it's
right. Yeah, and then when he's
so great in New Japan,
when people were really excited when he was on TV a couple weeks ago and he had Jake with him, like so many people were like, God, they're like finally Lance is back with Jake. Like they're like, this is really great.
And he like looked like real Lance there for a minute, and it was
amazing. And then like he had the stuff with Alex. Like still haven't gotten a chance to see the Independence Day shows, but I know he tagged with Alex Zane on one of those shows, correct? Or did he just face him? Or I can't remember. I feel there was something that happened, but clearly they clicked. Because he's like, bring Alex Zane over and let me have him in this stable. And I was like, that would be amazing. That would be a really cool stable to have. But yeah, like you said, then maybe put them on Rampage. I know it's the least watched show, but you got to do something.
I mean, we watch it. We just usually end up DVR. We usually end up, what ends up happening a lot of the times is that we end up watching it sometime before Collision.
That's what some of my friends do. I watch it live, obviously.
I know, obviously, because you're working.
Yeah, because I'm covering it, so I would. But if I wasn't covering it, I don't know that I would necessarily watch it live unless it was something like I really wanted to see.
Like if we're awake at 10 and there's nothing else on, we will put it on. But in general, it's like we might be doing something else or into something else or just like, my husband works in retail, and so he might just fall like asleep. And I'm like,
it happens.
I don't blame you. Let's go. Let's all go to sleep.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. And so I guess we're gonna continue on with a conversation that we started last week.
Woo-hoo!
And then it spilled over onto the Boom and the Dynamite show, which again we said is available on Patreon. I've actually the clip, if you're not a Patreon subscriber, I urge you to subscribe. However, if you are subscribed to the YouTube channel, the conversation that Paul and Jeff had about women's wrestling is that part of the conversation is on the YouTube channel right now. The clip is doing really well because obviously it's a conversation that people are having, and now they seem to at least be having a more thoughtful conversation about it, at least from what I've seen. It's nice that we've had people on our network kind of join in the conversation with us, and that's a really cool thing to see. And then it just worked out that Mel and I were available to do the Boom. That was not a planned thing. It didn't come together until the last minute, but it ended up working out. We were able to continue that conversation with James and talk to him about it and get his view on stuff. And then the Dynamite show also talked about it. Paul, obviously, he started a thread on the Wrestling Observer message board, which is somewhere I have and probably will never venture. So
I know,
because I appreciate my mental health.
Correct. That's exactly correct.
I will default to Paul and let him handle that. And I appreciate Paul starting that conversation, and I appreciate him clarifying that I am not an e-drone. I don't even watch WWE.
Who wants AEW to fail?
Why would I want the company that I just think watch the most to fail? I want the women to succeed. That has been the entire point.
I think it's cute because people like Paul who are just like he said to me when we were in the Discord, he's like, that's frustrating to me because it couldn't be further from. He's like, it couldn't be further from the truth, and it's very frustrating to him. I know that Sam appreciates the backup.
I do. I truly appreciate.
It's like I don't feel that. Like you could accuse something. It's like if they're not white knighting us, they're actually supporting us. They're backing us up. They're not. They're encouraging
and I'm not
us.
There, so I appreciate
by having their own conversations,
which is great. That's the whole point of all of this.
I feel like we opened the door to allowing some men to have a conversation about women's
Yeah.
wrestling without feeling so like, I can't talk about women's wrestling because I'm
Right.
a man. And it's like, yes, you can. You should.
Yeah,
Like,
you
if you
should,
want
because
to support us.
they listen to you. That's why I said, like, when we talked about it last week, when men were chanting women's wrestling
Mhm.
during the Athena Willow match, that is important because men's voices tend to carry more in wrestling, especially among other men, because when it comes from a woman, they usually think we're complaining or we're whining or we're bitching or we're this or that. And so sometimes it needs to come from a man where they will listen. Sometimes, just like in corporate settings where a woman will pitch an idea and then a man will say it and the boss is like, yeah, I like that idea, Ted. Even
It's never happened. Yeah.
So sometimes, but I mean, they should be having this conversation with us. We're not shouting at, most of us are not shouting at you. We're
No,
not trying to talk
in our
down to
case, I
you.
think that it's fair. Like, we're not, because I'm in no, I
Yeah,
have
we're
no
just trying to
interest
have a
in
conversation and
shouting
explain.
at people. This has like
Yeah,
been one of the best weeks in terms of having a healthy discourse with
yeah,
wrestling fans of all walks of
right.
life,
Mhm.
to having a conversation about, yes, we also want to see a strong women's, like, this was supposed to be an alternative, and that
Right. And
includes
you're
this
doing the
thing.
exact same thing that your competitor is doing.
And it's,
You're not
and I'm
doing.
interested, and it's interesting to me that, I mean, you think about it though, it's like Brad is like the biggest Stardom fan in the universe.
Yeah.
Brad's a bigger Stardom fan than any woman I know
Well, and then
anywhere.
look at
Like,
Scott.
this
Look at
is
Scott
like, or
Edwards.
Scott from 5-Star Joshi.
Yeah, and even and Daza, who's not here with us today. Daza is also a huge Stardom fan. They are constantly, the three of them are constantly banging the drum for women's wrestling.
And our
And
friend John, who was on with the art,
yeah,
he TJPW. He just like, he's like, go watch that, go watch that.
yeah,
It's like,
which is really cool. And so it's, again, we're not having these conversations to yell and things like that. We're just, we want people to pay attention because it's been a problem since day one. It's only getting worse. And there are,
and you're doing data collection does not constitute somebody calling you some kind of like, it doesn't,
well, and the
it shows the pettiness of those people where
Mhm.
it's like, I'm doing this for like data collection to actually see what it looked like, what the picture of the
Right, that's
program
how
is, and
that's
you're just mad because I'm right.
right. And that, again, this is how the whole thing started. Like, that's what I was explaining to Paul the other day because he made the comment that he doesn't care if it's 4 minutes or 24 minutes. But the point is, when they're getting less time in the ring, then that is less time for a story. It is less character development. Like, that's been my entire point of all of this has been more time for the women. It doesn't mean just I only want them to have more time in the ring. It's all more time on TV is the point. I want them to have these matches in the ring where they have time to tell stories, where they have time. And so sometimes they can tell a story in 4 minutes. I mean, that's what Jade was doing. She was running.
Well, that's
Nyla
a
did
big
it
part
for
of the program.
That's what Nyla was doing for a long time. She was just running through people, which if that's the story you're telling, because they kind of did that with Masha Slamovich over in Impact. Like when they first brought her in, they were establishing her as this huge threat to the knockouts division. And so she was running through women. So it's fine if it's a story, like if that's the story you're telling, but you can't tell that story forever.
Right.
Eventually these women have to eventually these monsters who can kill women in 2 minutes, eventually they have to have 8-minute matches
Yeah.
and things like that. And so it's all about giving women equity and giving them the time, because this is something that women have had to fight for in wrestling as long as women have been wrestling. Pretty much, like, especially when your only TV broadcast that was accessible to everyone for the last couple of decades because of the way they portrayed women. So then you have to undo all of that. You have to teach them that women are not a bathroom break, that they are more than bra and panty matches, they are more than mud wrestling, they are more than all of these things. And they were doing the best with what they were given. But you're supposed to be an alternative to that. So then give these women the time in the ring. Give them time backstage, give them time to develop their characters, give them time to tell stories, give them something that makes sense. Like, we know Sheeta's whole purpose is she wants to regain the title. And then even Nyla pointed out, she was like, everybody talks about how they want Sheeta to have a title run. She was like, but the pandemic started, the world literally shut down during my title reign, and nobody's saying, oh, I want Nyla, she deserves to have that shot back. So that's Nyla's, reason for doing things. And so give them a reason to do something. It's just Nikki said, how is wanting longer women's matches equal to AEW wanting AEW to fail? I still don't get that logic, because there is no logic.
There's no logic.
That is, they want to rip apart anything that they can.
It's cherry picking what they want to hear.
Right.
And it's also essentially that person showing that, that they're afraid of that exact thing.
Right.
It's like,
and so
if it bothers you that much, then there's something to it.
Right. And so Thunder Rosa did an interview with Doc, who was one of my good friends. He writes for Bleacher Report. He got to interview Thunder Rosa, and I really recommend reading the whole thing if you've got the time. I've retweeted it. I'll tweet it again. I don't think I retweet it under Powerbombshells. I think it's just my personal one, but I'll make sure to tweet it.
Once you do that, I'll pop it on.
It's a really good interview, but
I saw that it was up, and I haven't gotten a chance to read it yet.
So I wanted to talk about a section that she talks about, because Doc did ask her about women's wrestling and how, because she's been with her not being able to be in the ring, she's been doing Spanish commentary. She does the Busted Open on Fridays. So she said she's been able to kind of look at the wrestling business and the women's division from a different perspective, because she's not been in the ring. And so she does talk about it. And she said that one of the things that the article says is that she's been passionate about is increasing visibility for women's wrestling, not just for herself, but for all women and future generations. He asked how this could be done, and she said, Thunder Rosa said, I think one of the things that I always talk about is giving us the platform, an equal platform for all of us to shine. And that means more time, better storylines, and equity just in general. There are a lot of steps that have to be taken, and there are great matches that have happened and great storylines that have happened. But I feel like we can do more. We always want more. And I think that's the one thing I've just said, that I've said just all across the board. And when we're all working on it, and I've been reading a lot of my peers' books from the 1980s and the 1990s, and they continue to talk about more spaces for women and inequality in the workforce, and that's probably one of the main reasons. But again, when we have more women being represented in different parts, broadcasting as ring announcers and administrators in production, that's important too. I'm not just talking in wrestling, but in general. So, I mean, she pretty much just nailed everything that I've been talking about for the last few years. So I appreciate, Thunder Rosa saying that. And I know that they're trying, the best that they can. At the end of the day, it comes down to Tony and how he books things. And we will, before I get to the other stuff, is there anything you wanted to say about Thunder Rosa's comments?
I think that, because we're going to talk a little bit about everything that's going on. So I think
so. So Mel and I went back and forth about Mel and I went back and forth on how to discuss the next situation, because I don't want to say that it's not an important part of the conversation, because I think for people, we're not in the wrestling industry. We're not wrestlers. We can't say what is and what isn't important. I do think that Lufisto's comments deserve to be recognized and acknowledged, and her feelings are valid. On the other hand, we don't want it to come across as we're just spreading gossip, because that's not what we're here for. We try to avoid gossip in all aspects of wrestling. And so we were trying to figure out the best way to handle this situation. So we are going to just mention her comments, and then just kind of go from there. Again, we're not saying that we agree or disagree or anything like that,
but or that we know anything about what's going on inside of an AEW or any other wrestling locker room or backstage space or anything like that.
Right. So Lufisto, who, if you are not familiar with Lufisto, she's a 26-year veteran. She is in the Independent Women's Hall of Fame. A lot of women who have come after her credit her for the things that she was able to do. She was doing intergender wrestling when a lot of that was not happening. She's paved the way for a lot of people, and she is probably one of the most underrated and unsung women in wrestling. So she does have she does have a voice, and she does what she says. Again, I want to validate what she says because I think that she, from her experience, it is something that probably has happened. I'm not saying that what she's saying is, I feel like it's important to mention in the whole conversation. So Lufisto tweeted, so actually before I get to that, so on Wednesday, after the women's match, the camera paused quite a few seconds on a sign that said book the women's division better. And of course, that caught fire, got my attention, got a lot of people's attention, got Lance Storm's attention, who directed people to watch Impact. Well, yes, you should watch Impact. Knockouts are doing a lot, but that doesn't fix the problem in AEW or WWE, because the scenes, from what I'm hearing, WWE is they're falling back into a lot of the same paths that they falling into the same patterns they have always done. So Lufisto tweeted, "This is the first time I say something." Oh, wait, I think that's not the right one. That's the one after that. So she said, "It's cute how people blame booking for a bad women's division. Talent with too much power, talent denegregating each other, talent trash talking potential employees so they never get in as soon as they walk in. It starts here." And then she seemed to direct that. Most people assumed that she was directing that towards Britt Baker. And we will get to why. And so then people were like, "Oh, you're never gonna get a job there." And she was like, "It's too toxic. I don't want to work there." And then she said, "This is the first time I say something publicly after over a year. I'm not gonna throw names on an app with limited characters. There are several details and the context to explain the whole story with accuracy, which I'll do when the opportunity arises." Some people accused her of wanting to be paid for an interview, and she's like, "We're not paid for interviews." And she's like, "I may just do my own video." She's like, and explain everything. So her comments seemed to be directed at Britt Baker. Britt has been the source of some rumors before. It's no secret that her and Thunder Rosa do not like each other. That's not gossip; it's fact. If you watch All Access,
they went out of their way on All Access to. I mean,
yes. So and it wasn't
like they went out of their way to set it. Even if they didn't like each other before, if they did kind of have an okay working relationship, that show set it up to make them not. It didn't set them up for success in terms of working together.
Right. And basically it sounds like Warner Brothers were like, "Oh, they really don't care for each other. Let's make it a storyline." So they could have played some of it up for TV. Britt definitely was to promote the show. She was bringing up the stuff with Thunder Rosa again. Yeah, we talked about this in depth several episodes ago because it was such an issue. Then where there was also the thought that some people had that maybe Jamie Hayter wrestled injured because she saw how Britt talked about Thunder Rosa, and she didn't want that to happen to her. And look, we know wrestling politics they've been around since the beginning of wrestling. People will
sports and theater have politics involved.
Yeah, everything.
This is sports and theater smashed together.
Right. And so we know that politics happen, whether we agree with it or not. That's not the argument here. And so, sure, I mean, if you do have someone who is politicking for certain things and then it's hurting other women in the division, that is a problem. But that's only a small percentage of the bigger issue within the way the women are being booked. Because at the end of the day, even if someone is politicking, and maybe somebody is politicking who is putting themselves in certain positions, because people are making the argument, "Oh, well, Britt Baker loses." True, but Britt is on TV a lot, and I'm not saying it's because she's politicking her way there. Maybe that's kind of what that's alluding to. We're not there, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to the way Tony books things, and he is not giving them storylines. He's not some weeks he's not giving them time. We saw the Britt Baker 1 minute match where he was like, "Oh crap, gotta have a women's match. Let me go get the former champion and throw her on TV real quick."
Frankly, not even Bridges is as hot as she used to be, and you could blame that on booking too.
Yeah,
it's like you have a face of your women's division that you can use for anything you want to. And I mean, my biggest frustration with it in general is, unfortunately, because of the way that they do set her up. They do the thing with the Thunder Rosa thing, and then the other thing that they did with her was they did the like duality thing with her, where also she's a leader and a role model and all of these things. And also she was like, I love this women's division and I will die for this women's division and I'll do anything it takes for this women's division to be successful. And to me, it's like, well, then if you have the boss's ear, then you need to be telling him to book the rest of the group.
Right. Don't book just
don't just book me, or if you're booking me, book me in an angle to bring somebody else in and whatever. Right. So it's like, because I mean, and it's an unreliable narrator when it comes to the fact that I'm getting my information from a reality television show.
Yeah, of course.
But if we were to assume that she were being literal about the fact that she cares about the women's division and will like die for it and wants to see it succeed, then that you can't be. You need to be an advocate for everybody else in the like the biggest thing that women, and I mean it's because we like are almost built this way, and I mean there's like, but the biggest thing with women is like us bullying each other and us not supporting each other and us not having each other's backs in these situations, and that's good. That's like not good, but like that's the status quo. Women like backbite and women are catty and women try to get ahead by like stepping on other women. Like the idea would be, if you want this thing to be successful, the best way to do that is to be supportive. Like all of my best relationships with women are ones where we have equity and we support each other and we root for one another to be successful. And it's like, oh, Sam's on another podcast. Yay. Like, you know, it's like, that helps us all. And so just like anything, just being set up for success. Now,
and then you
blame Tony because he's the leader, and the leader has to set everyone up for success, no matter what. So, I mean, and he does tend. I mean, we've seen it with the men too. Like he has favorites. He has buddies.
Very obvious. He's not. He's never hidden it.
He's a helicopter boss, not a. He should be more of a.
I mean, and for some people that works for, because they feel like people in the company, it seems like, feel like they are in a good working environment. They have a good, like they're, because like it came out, like Roosh said the whole like he re-signed with AEW because of the way Tony treated him and his wife, especially because his wife just, him and his wife just had a baby, and he was thanking Tony for that.
Yeah, he does these type of, do a good job with that kind of
stuff. Like so that really thing he creates a working environment. So then I wonder if some people don't really hold him to task in certain ways that they maybe should, or what we perceive that they should,
or maybe people are just, and this is something that we do have to like devil's advocate on, is that there are people out there that just don't want to be. They don't want to be positive, and they don't want to have a good boss, and they don't want to have a good working environment, and they don't want to, they're rejecting that sort of thing because of something that's happened to them in their past. Or, I mean, there are people that just don't want to be part of the thing, that just kind of want to, I mean, I don't think that anyone in this situation is representative of that, but it's just like any workplace, is that there's always going to be that guy in the workplace that's always the like office grump. That's like, what are you all so happy about? That just doesn't want to participate in what everybody else is doing. And so, I mean, I don't see that in this situation. But it is like, I mean, I think Paul was hilarious at one point because I was reading Lufista's like the comments that she was getting hammered on, and he was like, and they were like, who the hell are you? Somebody was like, who the hell are you? And he was like, she's only one of the most like seasoned independent wrestlers, female wrestlers in the history of the business. You should probably listen to her.
She's not just she's not somebody who got burned because she didn't get signed or anything like that.
She doesn't want a job with them. She's
seen, and she has that's somebody who has seen literally everything. But she's been around for 26 years. You think of all the conditions that she's seen for women's wrestling over the last couple of decades, and that's even just on the independent scene. And people were trying to shame her because they're like, oh, you only wrestle in bingo halls, and they think because you're an independent wrestler that you're not successful, when some of the most successful wrestlers in the world making the most money are independent wrestlers. Effie is the first person who comes to mind. Matt Cardona Steph DeLander said she's made more money in the last year than she ever made in WWE when she was down in NXT. There are people who can figure out, who can make a sustainable living in independent wrestling, which is what we should want. We should want them to not have to rely on a TV job to be financially successful.
Yes.
And you can't, and just because she's not with a major company doesn't make her opinions any less relevant or factual, because she's seeing these things.
Like
and
the opposite of fact, she's been every freaking where, and
right,
she kind of knows what's going on. I mean, she could be speaking for someone that doesn't have the power to speak out because they are inside the company and they can't. I mean, you don't want to put your spot in jeopardy by being someone that's like essentially a whistleblower on a situation.
And it reminds me, somebody else brought it up, and it makes me think, it reminds me of Big Swole, when that whole, if you, not the whole part that got blown out of proportion because of misleading headlines, I went back and listened to the actual interview. She was not rude, she was not mean, but she did say, she's like, I loved working there. There were some things, that I didn't agree with. There was some structure things. So these issues have been in place for a while. And then we saw what happened to Swole when she spoke up. And so then there are other women maybe who do want to say something about that, but like you said, maybe they don't feel comfortable enough because they don't have the boss's ear, or they're not somebody who is featured regularly on TV, or so maybe somebody like a Lufisto can say some of the things that they can't say. And I'm not saying,
well, it's not a great environment for women. And it's like, if I lose my job at AEW, my only other choice is WWE, and then I'm working for a literal like abuser.
Right, exactly.
And that's not something or I have to go be as savvy as Lufisto and make a real good living on the indie scene, which is harder than ever with the way that the pandemic has shifted the tone of how we do things as humans. Plus, just effed up economy that we have.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that play here, and it's harder. And so, but like you said, at the end of, regardless of how much certain people may be in Tony's ear, it does come down to Tony. He is the booker. And somebody asked the question, and one of my editors asked the question on Twitter the other day and said, if Tony continues to book the women and the tag team divisions the way that he has, is he Booker of the Year? And I think that's a fair question. He made me stop and think for a minute. I was like, huh.
I mean, right this minute, he wouldn't win Booker of the Year anyway for me. Other people would be ahead of him in terms of Gato would be ahead of him. Yeah. Honestly, I'm not even a Stardom fan, but because of what Rossy Ogawa has done, I mean, he's something like he wanders into the conversation every year, and gets some votes on the observer ballots and stuff. But I mean, in terms of drawing and making money and having people be over, and I mean, look at the women. You can you don't know them, you don't see them every day, but you can name Julia and you can name Mayu Iwatani and you can name all these people, and they all work for that company.
Right.
So, and right now, I mean, I love AEW and I still think Dynamite's a great show, but I do think that it's underperforming based on other years and other times of the
and you always see even the year-end awards don't really,
well, I mean, that's all
but
fun.
But I mean, but
we
people,
do it for
but
fun
I think
here.
more of it is also people who joke, because there's that meme of Tony that goes around and it says Booker of the Year, and people will jokingly, when he gives us a dream match or for Forbidden Door, they'll pop it up. And so I think it was more of that. I think that's more of what he was saying, not necessarily voter award, which I guess it could be both, but it just, I was like, that's a fair point. That's a good thing to mention. And so I'm going to go to the comments over here. And so Grace said, hold on. I get wrestlers do have power, but at the end of the day, Tony has the final word on what and who gets booked. Exactly. And so there may be some people in his ear that kind of that maybe push certain people to get booked. And maybe
and we have to be honest with the fact that women in the workplace, anyone who's worked in had to be, I've been a manager, I've had to face other management people above me and have conversations that they don't like and I don't like, and we don't, and we've had to agree to disagree on things before, or we've had to have but it's different for like it is different for a woman than it is for a man to like bust into. It's tougher. It's a little tougher.
Yeah.
And it comes like depending on how the man is, depending on what kind of man you're facing.
Sure.
I mean, he just could look at you like, what? Okay, crazy lady. Why don't you get out of here? You know, it's I'll take it under advisement and stuff like that. And so it's like it's not as easy as everyone thinks. Well, these women should just march in there. And I'm like, yes, I agree with that. I absolutely 100% wish that every single woman would march into Tony's office and be like, we need more time and you need to give it to us.
Right.
But that's not as easy as everybody. Like, it's not as simple as
office politics are everywhere.
It takes a lot to do that.
It does. And then you have to have everybody on board because that you can.
Well, and in this business, it's natural to just nobody's on it. I mean, this is like every wrestling book I've ever read is every single person. Like, if you can walk away with friends you can count on one hand, then you've like done okay. And I'm just like, that's every book I've read ever. Like everybody says it. It's so. I mean, I get it, the nature of the business, but like he is running it like a professional sports business. And so, I mean, Gato does fine. Gato doesn't have, I mean, he has drama. Certainly there's plenty of drama in New Japan, but
yes, there are. It's everywhere because it's wrestling and there's always drama and there's always politics. But like we keep just saying, like, it all boils down to how much time that Tony invests in this division. He's got to invest in the women and not just in ring time, which is a huge part of it, but it's also the characters, it's the merch, it's the stories that he gives them. It's all of it. It's not just a one thing. Oh, I've checked off this box, so I've got one women's match on the card this week, or he's over in ROH and last Thursday he had 4 women's matches. They were all 4.5 minutes or under, which kind of was back to dark. But then on the other hand, they did film it the night after a pay-per-view. Athena had just had a 20-minute match. So, you know, she didn't, I think she wrestled 3.5 minutes. Trisha Dora wrestled on 0 hour and she wrestled the longest. She had a 4.5 minute match on ROH. But like, you have to, and it's, you can't do a one time. Like, you can't be like, okay, here's your 11-minute match on Collision. And then we don't have another long match for 3 months. Like, it's gotta be consistent because you have
for me, it's like a match for the sake of having a match is not, you're just having women's matches on your show. You're not. And some people ask like, well, what do you think what are you expecting? What do you want to see all these women? Well, for the last 3 months, 4 months, we've been watching Jack Perry get all this ring time and all this promo time so that he can make this character, so that he can turn on Hook, so that he can, I mean, he's not great at cutting promos still, but the only way he's going to get better is to be in the ring cutting promos. And nobody questions that. No. And nobody says anything about the fact that he got 25 minutes this week to cut like some of the worst fucking promo stuff. Oh, there's the one.
Well,
that's the one.
Right.
But, and so it's like, so the answer to your question is that.
Yeah.
I want to see a lady.
It goes back to Thunder Rosa talking about equity. If you're going to give,
I mean, if you're going
to let Jungle Boy or Jack Perry figure out his character on TV, then let the women do the same thing. Like,
let Nyla Rose do that, or let Hikaru or somebody new. Sky Blue is like coming out. She's breaking out with people. Willow has all of the things to do it. You could build 10 stories around Willow.
Well, and even like Anna Jay struggles a lot on the microphone. But the only way she's going to get
better if she had a little bit more time.
Right. And that's going to say, the only way she's going to get better is if you give her time, give her a storyline, give her more than talking about her.
I just don't understand why it's okay for Jack Perry to be abysmal on the microphone so that he can get better, or Darby Allin, who is getting better.
Right.
But he wasn't great at the beginning. It was okay. But when I ask for the same thing for like to have like a fleshed out ladies situation doing that, it's like, and the only way Britt got over was because she did, because remember, and I freaking hated Britt Baker. She was annoying. She was not good in the ring. She was not good on the microphone.
No. Mm-mm. She was terrible. And then what? And who did she work with that helped her get over? It was
Tony
Big Swole.
Schiavone, actually, but
Nobody wants to talk about it being Big Swole that helped her get over. That whole feud where they kept her on TV and they had Swole being the comedic relief, pushing her to get better. And they don't want to, they just think that Britt magically got better. And it's but it's because they gave her TV time. They gave her a chance to, so you can use that as an example. You gave Britt was awful in the beginning. She had terrible promos, and they just kept working with her and kept giving her time. And she eventually got to what she's doing now, at least on the, some can argue that she's better on the microphone than in the ring. And in some people's cases, that's true. I mean, I always go back to
into a star. One of the people, matter how great she is in the ring. I mean,
it also, that somebody that I always bring up is Jeff Hardy. Like, Jeff Hardy is obviously amazing in the ring. He's not the greatest on the mic. That's fine. Like, some people have better strength, but if you're making them sit in catering and not giving them a chance, then Anna Jay is not going to get better not being able to talk. Like, she's going to have to work through her stuff. In some of these other women, you've got to give them the reps, or they don't have a performance center. So they don't have a place to, and I don't necessarily think they need one, but like, they don't have this place where they can like get better at their skills, and they can only work with what they're given. And sometimes that is going to hang out with Dustin Rhodes, who has been a big supporter of the AEW women's division. He has a wrestling school, and so he has worked with some of the women to help develop them, and which is amazing. And I'm so glad that they have somebody like that. And then you've got Maria, who you just need to utilize better. Maria has a whole entire wrestling promotion that is built on making women ready for TV. I was in the Thunder Rosa interview, she talked about that's one of the things she wants to do more with Mission Pro, is to help women learn different skills so that they can, if they do get a job on with a TV company, then they know how to talk on the microphone. They know where to look in the camera. They know all of these things, which is what they should be doing, and which is amazing, but they shouldn't have to rely on the independents to do that for them, when AEW should be investing more in their women to do these things, or just investing in anybody. And like we've talked about the, like you said with Jack Perry, like, he's getting all this TV time to figure it out, and he struggles a lot some weeks, and some weeks he's gotten a lot better. It's hit, and that's the thing. I mean, it even goes with, like, you could even look at Taya and Britt's match last week. They got 10 minutes, but that match was not very good, and that's gonna happen some weeks. The matches are just not going to be great, but then you just put them back out there. Look at Saraya. Saraya's very first promo was terrible.
Bad.
And and she hadn't cut a promo on live TV in 5 years. The promo was not good, but what did they do? They put her back out on TV, and they kept giving her the chance to work off the rust and so that's what you do. You give them the time and the opportunity to do those things. And sure, you don't have time. Maybe you don't have time to do that every single week, but you've got to it's the consistency. Like, you just have to keep doing it. And so I don't know why that's such a hard concept. But like you said, some of the men are getting that opportunity where the women are not.
Well, they just do a lot of starting and stopping with the women, and with where they've been consistent with Darby Allin, they've been consistent with Jack Perry, and they've been consistent with Sammy Guevara even a little bit more. And I mean, there's been some, but I mean, they've just been more consistent, where they've just they're always putting them out there, and they're always doing these things, and you're seeing them every single week. And it's because it's like, these are the people that are going to be our future stars, and that's it. They just, so I mean, that's you have to, well, then, and you have same level of perseverance for a lady that you have for a guy is like.
Right. Well, and even like you have CM Punk, when he first came, he said that Britt Baker was a pillar. He was like, why aren't you treating her like one? Like, you're giving her. So then she's kind of got that label, and they let her go on TV, and they saw something with, like, kind of with Jade. Jade obviously was very green when she first started, and they kept putting her out there. They put her on, they knew she was a star, so they're putting her out there. They're getting her on TV. They're letting her do these things, which is amazing, but they just need to do that with more women, and they need to let them. So, and they were pairing, like, it's also like when that's why they paired Marina Shafir with Nyla, because Marina Shafir is not somebody who talks a lot, but Nyla is very good at talking. She's very charismatic. If you follow her on Twitter, she's very funny. And so they put Marina with her to kind of like guide her. But then poor Marina, bless her heart, she cut a promo on Dark and it was very bad. And then they didn't do it again. But she can't, and now Dark doesn't exist anymore, which is one place where you could do those things, but they don't let her talk anymore. And I'm like, well, she can't get better if you don't invest in her to get better. And so now she just stands there with, I mean, she does have matches, occasionally. Like when we even talked about last week on the Boom, we talked about like she would be perfect for a blood and guts match. Like that's the perfect place to utilize her.
Except we're not doing one of those, so get over it.
Yeah, exactly. That's not happening. And so another comment over here is it's been obvious for years that Tony doesn't care about women's wrestling. He is women's wrestling because he feels like he has to do it. There would be no women if he could get away with it. He definitely does not help himself.
He doesn't make a great case for himself.
He does not. I mentioned that. I said that last week.
We talked about, and I think that, I mean,
he does not always, he's not going to beat the charges sometimes.
We do have, like, I mean, we're not the only ones that see it that way. That's not something that, like, you and I mean, I hear that on plenty of other, even, I mean, listen, one of the biggest advocates for Willow over the last several months, which will come as a shock to just like everybody, has been Dave freaking Meltzer. He has been like, why are they not using Willow? I mean, This is a guy who's constantly accused, and believe me, like he has his moments where I don't think he's an intentional misogynist. I just think that certain people of certain ages like have a way of like speaking about things because it's just experiences. I don't think it's like he's a mean person or that he's like sexist or anything. I just think that the way that it comes off is like, oh, okay, thanks a lot. But in this case, like he has been just like almost angry sometimes.
He should be. Willow's
which
amazing.
Is like, okay, well, if you want like the ultimate like guy who's been accused of like disliking it and not wanting it and all of these things, that guy's since January has been saying, why aren't they using her more? Why aren't they using her more? Why aren't they using her more? He thought that she should have beaten Jade. And I understand that we brought Taya in and everything else.
Right.
But then again, that also sort of lends more to the, but then you brought in another woman.
Well, so and then they waited for Chris Statlander to come back because that was supposedly the original thing was that Chris Statlander was supposed to win back.
They already had Willow, so that means they didn't need Taya, which means that like why keep like if you're gonna sign these women and not use them, what's the point? You're no different.
Well, and that's what you and I talked about last week with like bringing because they are bringing in Billy Starks, which they should. But then we've also talked about how the way that they're right now, the way the women's division is coming off, if I were Mercedes, then if I was Mercedes Moné, I would be like, no thanks.
Nope.
Maybe, and we've talked about I have talked about how I really want Jordynne Grace to come to ROH because they're trying, you can't just, Athena is amazing and you should build the women's division around her, but you have to bring in quality talent to do that. And Jordynne Grace is somebody that I would bring in, but then you look at the way Tony books things and how Jordynne was presented in the knockouts division. She was one of the best champions ever there. She was one of the best women there. She was highly, she was one of the best women they had. So if she looks at ROH and things like that, then maybe she's going to be like, no. I mean, so that's a thing. I'm like, you have to realize that you could be turning away women who do not want to work with you because of the way you present the women on TV.
And
you have to. Absolutely. So that's something that I mean, obviously you don't book your
I guess if he doesn't care, then he doesn't care. And that's it. He just
Grace said if someone was going to do all that, the women's locker room would have to be on board. This is when we were back in the conversation where we were talking about the women would have to come to Tony and like, we deserve better, which
would be the best way to do it.
It would be. One person gets dismissed, a group has a better chance to affect change. Exactly, agree. 100%. And then here we've got another comment. So someone needs to ask Tony Khan at the next scrum, name 2 or 3 of his favorite women's matches he's seen in the last 5 years that didn't happen in AEW. I'd say 5, but we need to see him spontaneously combust. And
Hey Sam, that might be something for your list. If
They
it's
will
not,
for
if
he will
it's
for real end up banning me if that happens. I don't. So I didn't mention it on here. So the last scrum, I actually did not get invited to. I don't know that it was on purpose, because I found out another friend of mine, he didn't get the invite, but I have been on every single media call since the beginning, and I've only missed one, and that's because I was with Nikki at a physical therapy appointment, and so I didn't even know that there was one because I never got an invite. And so I assume it's a glitch. I assume it's not a personal thing.
No, it's because you're a stopwatch person.
It happened the week before this entire conversation. If it had happened last week, I might have been like, all right, that seems a little odd. I assume it was a glitch. I did email my contact and made sure I was still on the mailing list, because I was like, well, and I post like every time they sent out a press release, like I tweet it and things like that. And I was like, well, I do want to be on the media calls because I live tweet them. Sometimes I write articles based on some of the comments that are made. Sometimes, and a lot of times I will use it for things we discuss here,
yeah, it's helpful.
It's helpful. So I finally got it. I was in timeout for quite a while. There were 4 after the Thunder Rosa stuff last year. They didn't call on me for like 4 calls in a row. So if I ask that question about his favorite, if I ask the question about his favorite non-AEW match, then I might be in timeout I might get in timeout again, or maybe they just conveniently leave me off the list.
But you're one of those stopwatch people. You don't get to be on there anymore.
Yeah, he's gonna be like, no more. He was like, no, Sam asks questions I don't like. Please don't.
I don't like that anymore. Question. Next.
I mean, no, we don't comment. For people who are listening, we do not pre-submit questions, so don't think that he's like reading questions and deciding who gets to answer what. Like, we don't pre-submit.
He just picks on people. I mean, picks people.
Yeah, there's somebody. There is somebody that goes through and he will say, okay, here's who's asking the question, and this person will be next. So it's that type of a thing. They do read write-in questions, but the write-in questions come after the call has started. So these are not it's not like Tony's out here. It does not like Tony has somebody out here.
He's not like, it's not like Donna Brazil is feeding him the questions.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like, so, but maybe they do see people and they're like, please don't ask her. That's probably what they did with me, because I would try to ask questions and they just wouldn't call on me for like 4 calls in a row after the Thunder Rosa incident.
Stop calling on her. She asks critical questions about women's wrestling, potential.
But now I do want to know that question. I should write that down. So when is the next the next call is for All In. I don't know if I'll get to ask it for that. Maybe for All Out. Maybe for All Out. Maybe he'll we'll see. But now I do want to know whether I ask that question or not. I do want to know if he get named. And it made me think of that question who are the 5 women's matches. It made me think of that thing from Tough Enough, where it was I think it was Cameron, or they asked her favorite women's match, and it was her favorite match of all time, and it was like Alicia Fox versus, I can't remember who it was, and people like joke about that all the time. And I actually was I wish I had remembered what it was, because when I did the Getting to Know You interview with Garrett, I was gonna joke and say that was my favorite match. But yes, so at the end of the day, it all just comes to give them equity.
I appreciate the fact, I'll say this, is that I'm glad that we started a conversation that happened around, and it was an actual, for the first time in a while anyway, in my experience, it was a constructive discourse on where do we feel like we want our way, and from all fans, what do we want out of it? Do we want women's wrestling on here? Do we not want it on here? If we do want it, what's that look like? I mean, it felt really, honestly, like way less. I mean, you always are going to get your trolls, but it felt way more like a conversation. I felt like it opened the door for some people to really be like, okay, I can be comfortable having this conversation. And I'm glad. And I feel good about that. And I'm
me too. Yeah, and we
got a tag team name.
So. Like I tweeted last Sunday, I think it was, I am always going to be an advocate for women's wrestling. I'm going to advocate for them to get more time in the ring, more time backstage, more character work, more storylines, anything that is going to help the women's division. I'm going to advocate for it. And so,
Yep.
like that's so. Even if you don't think maybe some of you don't think timing matches is helpful, there are women who are paying attention to it. There are wrestlers who are paying attention to it. I've had wrestlers pull me who have said to my face, like, people are paying more attention to you than you realize.
Well, they're
And
clearly
so
paying
that's
attention. It got mentioned on Observer
well
Radio. The
before
idea of it, the
that's
whole
true.
concept is
And again,
now
I'm not the only one doing it. There are other women who do it. There are
sure.
other women who were
But
doing
I'm
it.
taking all the credit for you because that's how the internet works.
Yes, exactly.
Sam is like spearheading this, and everyone else can jump on
Yeah.
and help her.
But yeah, so I will bang the drum for the women, getting spots. I mean, we luckily got it with
You got to
Athena
hog
and
all the
Willow.
credit.
And I will take, and again, and I will look at I will hold up Athena and Willow as what I'm talking about. Like you let Athena have this character, you let her get in character work, you let her get in promos. When she wasn't wrestling, she was building her story. You let her do all the things I'm talking about, and then people were literally begging for you to let her main event a show.
Jim Valley really enjoyed that match. He had a lot of nice things to say about it and was like, I mean, he basically said that made the whole show for it. Like, he enjoyed the show, but that made the whole show. Like, it was like,
I loved
and I
that
mean,
match. It was
that's a guy who watches Stardom. He called the Stardom show with Fumi, so
yeah,
he knows
exactly.
his women's wrestling.
Right. And I will toot my own horn a little bit because I wrote an article the other day on the top 5 matches of Tony Khan's ROH, which was really hard. First of all, to pick just 5. It was also hard to not just put all Athena matches because I could have easily done that. And I was like, well, there's, other good stuff has been happening. But I did include Athena and Willow in there, and Athena retweeted it, which was cool. And then her husband retweeted it later, and so she's retweeted me a couple of times over the past few weeks, which is always nice. But yeah, so I'm really happy for them. I'm happy for all the praise that they're getting. But I mean, that's something I will hold up for this conversation every time we have it. Like, you let Athena do all of these things, and this is what you got out of it. So you can do that with other women. Now, of course, it's not going to play out the exact same way. Not all women are going to get over in the way that Athena did, or Willow for that matter. Not all women are going to have great matches every week. Not all women are going to be great on the microphone. That's just not the reality of it. But you don't know until you give them these opportunities, and they can't improve if you're not giving them these things. And so, but that's just off my soapbox about that. And somebody let me know it was Melina versus Alicia Fox that Cameron was referring to as the best match she's ever seen. So thank you. I knew it just left my brain as soon as I started to talk about it, and I was like, what was I talking about? So thank you for that. This is why we enjoy having people interact with us.
Great.
When I have brain farts like that, or when there's so many matches that I can't keep track of which show, like Sonata being at Emergent, not at Multiverse, it helps. So there's so much wrestling going on. Sometimes I forget what is happening.
There's a lot.
But yes, so
all right, let's get on to this last thing here real quick.
Yeah,
we did want to follow up on this from last week.
Yeah, so I do have one quick thing to talk about. I don't actually think I found out. I told Mel right before the show started because that's when I found out, literally before we went on air. Or so if you've been following us for the last few months, you know that the Carolina wrestling scene has been hit hard. Earlier this year, Ethan Case was injured during a wrestling match. There was a GoFundMe for him. He cannot currently wrestle. He is for Title Belt Pro, which is he is involved in that company. He is doing some commissioner work, so that he at least gets to be involved in that. Then we had referee Kevin Pierce was diagnosed with stage 4 colorectal cancer. I've been trying to keep you updated about that. There's a GoFundMe. And then, so unfortunately, another wrestler in the Carolinas was hit a week ago yesterday. His family home caught on fire. I believe from what the GoFundMe says, the living room and another room, I believe, are at a total loss. There's certain certain places in the roof have giant holes in them. Unfortunately, all of the family pets passed away because of this fire. Luckily, no humans were home when this happened, but I mean, it's still devastating to lose to lose your pets, especially in that manner, which I can only imagine how devastating that is. So they're trying to secure. They're trying to secure stable temporary housing. I believe that I don't know, from the way the GoFundMe was worded, it sounds like they may be able to do some rebuilding on the current house, but obviously that depends on what they see once they get in there and all that good stuff. So there is a GoFundMe for them. I did retweet it from my personal page last week. I will post it again, and I will post it on the Powerbombshells page. But if you're able, even if you can, I mean, if you're able to donate, that's great. It could be $1. Everything helps. If you can't donate, that's perfectly fine. Retweeting it definitely helps spread the word. But it's been a rough few months over here for some of the people in the Carolina wrestling scene, and we just want to bring attention to that when we can. And so if you're able to help, that would be
And we'll put that on our threads too once I get all that info now, because we do have that outlet, and it's a little easier to post some of the tech stuff on the threads than it is on the
I didn't even think about that. So that would be a great place just to put that out there. So I'll make sure that I get that up again today.
Don't worry, you'll get used to it. I'll keep bothering you about it. I've been trying to use it just because if Twitter does
download a separate app for it.
Well, if Twitter does disappear, I just want to have the
alternative. No, it's good to be.
I think even Garrett and you guys were talking about it a little bit in your conversation with him, where he said that sort of the same thing I felt was like I put myself over there in case this falls apart, because
like I literally like that. I have a link tree that has direct links to all of my.
I think a lot of us have been like making alternative plans in case Elon's fragile.
I know I need to create a website that's a portfolio, but I was like, in the meantime, this is something I could put up very quickly. That way, any app for that matter. If they but Twitter is where I typically promote my work and have for the last few years. And so, but yes, Threads is something that we should utilize.
It's still where it's at, but in case it goes away, that is an alternative. I don't have a Facebook because my grandma wouldn't let me get one, but just kidding. That's a joke. Hi, Daza.
Hi, Daza. Glad you caught us in the last couple of
minutes. Right at the end.
Hey, that's all right. You came, and that's all that matters.
Thank you for coming here. Glad we got to say hello to you today.
Yeah, so we are, if you miss it, Daza, or anybody else, we are on Threads now, thanks to Mel and honorary broad James Daniel help us get that set up. We are at Powerbombshells there. We're at Powerbombshells on Twitter and on Instagram. And make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel so that we're here generally every Sunday at 1:00. There are some special reasons every once in a while that we're not here, but we give you plenty of advance warning. And also, like we mentioned at the beginning of the show, make sure you're subscribed, because with the 2 big AEW shows coming up, and actually with SummerSlam coming up, I believe there's going to be some content.
That's right. SummerSlam is going to be in my backyard. I forgot.
SummerSlam is next weekend, right? I believe it's next Saturday.
The 5th.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, because I just saw somebody saying that they've just realized that CM Punk versus Ricky Starks was happening during SummerSlam.
Yeah, I want to look around. I actually realized, I was like, oh crap, I need to look around and see if there's any other shows around that are, because all the shows that crop up, because I thought there was someone had mentioned to me that maybe Prestige or somebody might try and come out, so that'd be cool. I know Prestige went to Montana. Or is going to Montana. So
Prestige is the one, I believe they're
out of Portland, I think.
Yes, Prestige is the company that made me make a very weird noise because they are doing Chris Sabin versus Alex Shelley.
But
I was not prepared for the graphic.
I'd be interested. I hope so. I mean, but I
was like, I'm gonna have to.
Shows tend to pop up around here.
I was like, I'm gonna have to resubscribe to IWTV. I hadn't used it in a while, so I've canceled my subscription a while back, and I was like, I guess I'm gonna have to bring it back so I can watch this match. And so, yes, there's always good wrestling. But yeah, so make sure you're following us you're subscribed to the YouTube channel so that you know when we're broadcasting, and if you are into other stuff like WWE, there's MMA content over here. There's plenty of Stardom content, lot of there's all kinds of wrestling and combat sports content on the Fight Game Media YouTube. So definitely subscribe to that and to the Patreon if you want to. The Patreon is $5 a month. And again, as we've mentioned on the YouTube channel, that you can see clips of these shows that are on Patreon. So if you are on the fence about subscribing, then check out, some of the content from the other shows. And then patreon.com/fightgamemedia is where you can go to support some of the content creators over there for just $5 a month. Or you can do like Mel and pay yearly and get it all done at one time.
And be a frugal person and save yourself a ton of money and get a ton of I listen to Dynamite Show. I like Mike and JD's bonus content a lot. I'm not just a host here. I'm also a listener. I enjoy I am as well. This group here, this Fight Game Media group's there's a good group here. So pretty much you can't go wrong. Pick a show. You can't go wrong.
Daza said, I may resub to SummerSlam for a shot of Shayna versus Ronda. Oh, for you may subscribe to Peacock. I guess that would be.
Oh, I finally found out that because of my gig, I do have the right level of internet to get Peacock until 24, but I have to figure out how to work it, and I couldn't get it to work. So I'm going to have to call Xfinity, and I'm just like, I'll deal with it. So I'll try and deal with that probably this week. The slam is in the backyard, so maybe.
Yeah, well, that's understandable. I don't know that I will be tuning into SummerSlam just because.
I know a lot of my friends were like, it's going to be your age. I'm like,
I've heard the last few pay-per-views have been really good, and so good for them.
Sure, because it's just wrestling I don't feel good about giving Vince McMahon my money.
Me neither.
And I've seen a lot of I've been to 2 WrestleManias. I
haven't been to a Oh, this is correct. Daza said no, we still call it the WWE network in the UK. That's right. I forgot it's only Peacock here.
Oh, you don't
it's
have
only
the
cock here. There it's still WWE network.
Yeah. God bless Keelan Scott for coming up with the cock. That is my favorite thing in the world. I call it that. I love it. I think it's every time I see the app on my TV, it gets me a little chuckle. I just couldn't get it to activate. It just didn't want to work, even though the email was like, no, it'll totally work. And I'm like, you're wrong, email. It's not working at all.
Yeah, if I use the cock, I use my friend's login.
I just get it for free because we
oh, that's right. Yeah, you get it for free.
We're PC gamers, so we get the gig internet speeds. We get the high internet speeds so that we can do all the things we want to do on our things at the same time.
Sure.
So
that's a very good reason.
It makes the most. It makes the most sense for us.
Yeah.
They still hate us like we have our own modem. They hate us. They want us to rent their shitty modem so bad, but yeah, so because of that, though, they're giving it to us again until 24 for free if I can figure out how to get it to work. So.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
I'll probably call them and be like, maybe I'll subscribe to someone else, and they'll be like, here's a whole bunch of free stuff.
DirecTV has been giving me free stuff for like the last couple weeks. Like for some, they're in a tiff with Nextstar, I think is what it's called. And so I have not gotten, for the last few weeks, I haven't gotten Fox, which is not that big of a deal because I don't watch SmackDown, but I can't. But the Braves have played. I've missed some Braves games.
I was gonna say, that's still your local affiliate.
It's so they took that away from me. I have a friend in Georgia who he has DirecTV and they took NBC from him. And so they gave me, I guess I fussed enough that they gave me a $10 credit, but then they were like, well, we'll give you HBO Max free for 2 months. And I was like, okay, you're going to give me Fox back or then this week they called week they called me and they gave me some other thing. They were like, for 3 months and you have access to it's like 3 Hallmark channels and
goody.
The Smithsonian channel and some MTV channel that is not MTV Classic, which Nikki was like, I'd rather have MTV Classic. And I was like, me too. Because when we had MTV Classic, we watched it all the time. Because then some songs that should not be classics are now considered classics, which is very hurtful.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
It is very hurtful.
The older you get, the worse it is. Yeah. So when someone says that was 30 years ago, I want to be like, you shut your dirty mouth.
Yeah, I saw like one of these the other day, like this CD was turning. They're like, we're going on tour for the 20th year. And I was like, what do you mean that CD is 20 years old? It's only 5. What are you talking about?
I don't remember
and I went to see
that way.
I went to see Matchbox 20 and they were like, I saw them a few weeks ago and they're like, we put this album out 27 years ago. And I was like, you shut the hell up. You did not. And then I did the math and I was like, yeah, yep, that tracks.
It was. It was that long ago. I'm really sorry.
I was like, I hate you.
Oh.
So maybe it's a good thing I don't have MTV Classic. Then my feelings won't get hurt so much.
Yeah. You still have the movie channels though, and then people start telling you how old those are.
Oh God.
Anyway, so yes, that's.
So that has been. This has been cable talk.
Cable minute. We didn't even put. Thank God we didn't talk about ratings. We just talked about the.
We don't do that here.
The art of having cable in your house properly.
You don't have to worry about that. We don't do ratings talk here. If you want ratings talk, please go to.
There's plenty of people, even on this network. They're wonderful. They break it down for you.
Yeah. I could care less. As long as wrestling's going to be on TV, I'm going to watch the wrestling I want to watch regardless of, clearly, because I watch Rampage. I mean, part of it is because I cover it, but I watch Rampage and the ratings.
She watches it live, folks.
I do watch it live.
I'm almost caught up to the G1 and she watches Rampage live, okay?
Yes.
Like, we're on the level. We know what we're talking about. We are proper wrestling nerds.
We are. Yeah, because we're in the middle of watching G1, and I'm like, I've got independent wrestling stuff I want to watch, but I'm gonna have to wait until after.
I love that I put together a document for you.
Man, that's so helpful because I was like, I am never gonna get.
I was like, I can't write this down like in a freaking chat. I needed it like so, and then I was like going through the cards, making sure that I got it. It was
Man,
so funny.
I really appreciated that. I was like, I've got to get caught up on this. I was like, I'm never gonna get caught up. When is the finale?
It's
July,
August 20
or August, yeah.
It's I mean, we're into like
the next time to get caught up before
August,
the finals,
and it's heating. This is like we're in like Act 2, and we're like in the middle of Act 2 of the tournament.
Okay, because I was like, I started stressing out because I was like, she's telling me I gotta watch full shows because things are picking up, and I was like, oh my God, am I gonna get caught up before the finale? And then I was like, wait a minute, I think I have more time. I'm thinking
it's just that 27th show. Everything's good on it, so you may as well just watch the whole show. Like all the matches actually, because now people are that is the first show where people are starting to get eliminated. The on the bubble things are happening.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't have to stress. I do need to get caught up, but at least
you need to get caught up. But the only one like that I've watched, like I'm watching Bell to Bell, is the 27th, which is the one
which I'm not there yet. We're on night.
That's the most recent one that came before today.
Yeah. So I think
there was fortunately a day off.
I think I said the 23rd.
I think there were 2 days off actually in a row. So you guys get some lag to catch up.
Okay. Good. Because I need to get caught up.
It's good stuff.
Oh, thank you, Gray. Gray said, you two are so funny and awesome. Well, we appreciate that. Thank you. All right. We've kept you guys long enough.
Yep. We're going to get out of here.
We will release you until next week. Make sure you're following us on the social media because I'll post the Fight Game Media. I'll post the GoFundMe there. I will also post Doc's article about his interview with Thunder Rose is really good. There's a lot of really good content in there. Sounds like she's coming back sooner rather than later, which they've been hinting at. Andrade has been kind of hinting that he might do some stuff with her, which I think could be really cool. Especially like now that they've got the Julia Buddy dynamic, maybe Thunder Rosa comes to even the score a little bit. So there's some good stuff happening. So hopefully we've got some good stuff to talk about next week. Maybe a little less drama. We'll see. It's the wrestling industry. Nikki said she enjoyed the conversation today. Thank you, Nikki.
Thanks, Nikki.
All right. So we will see you guys next week.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye.